Okay, in this video we're going to look at part 5 on the review, which says without a calculator, graph transformations of the basic graphs of 1 over x and 1 over x squared. We had two examples, or two problems to work on, which were these two, g of x and f of x. If we look at this one is 1 over x squared because it has an x squared in the denominator, whereas this is 1 over x because x has a power here. So we basically need to know the basics for each one of these. So we're going to do 41 here. So 41 is going to be the relationship to 1 over x here. So we're going to graph y equals 1 over x first. 41 has 1 over x squared. 1 over x squared. So we're going to graph 1 over x squared first and see what it looks like, and then we're going to transform it based upon these items in the problem, how it's been added to and subtracted from, and those types of things, so that we can translate this equation to the new one. So the basics here is that this is going to be a hyperbola. I know that negative 1 is going to give me 1. Negative 2 is going to give me 1 over 4. 0 is not defined. Because 1 over 0 is not defined. And then 1 and 2 are going to give me exactly the same thing as negative 1 and negative 2 gave me, which is 1 and 1/4, because it's 1 over 2 squared. So 1 over 2 squared is 1/4. 1 over 1 squared, which is just going to be 1. So in graphing the initial graph, we have negative 1, 1, negative 2, 1/4. 0 is not defined. 1, 1, and 2, 1/4. Now what's going to happen here is that this graph is going to have an asymptote on the y-axis, so it's going to be very close to the y-axis. It's going to come up and approach the it starts really close to the x-axis, comes up and approaches the y-axis. So it looks like this. And it has symmetry on the other side and does exactly the same thing, just folded over on the y-axis. So it bends down and does this, has asymptotes on both axes. And it has points going through 1, 1 and 2, 1/4. Now, we're going to look at what's happening to this graph when we do these things here. Now the first transformation is this, what we're going to do inside this parenthesis. So this is a shift right or left. In this case it's minus, so it's going to be shifting right 3. So we're going to shift right 3 units. This is going to cause a product of the 1, so this is going to cause a vertical stretch. So vertical stretch by a factor of 2. And then the last thing here is this one, where we do that last because it's added to it. So in the order of operations, we do this first, square it, then we divide 2 by that number, and then we add 1. So the last thing we're going to do here is shift up 1 for this plus 1. Okay, so we're just going to take these points and do that to them. So we're going to move right 3. Okay, so we're going to take these points, we're going to move them right 3. So 1, 2, 3. So this point goes here. This point goes here at 1/4. This point goes 1, 2, 3, goes right to here. This one goes to 1/4. And there's going to be an asymptote here, where there's an asymptote on the y-axis. Is going to shift over 3 units to the right. 1, 2, 3. and there's going to be an asymptote right here as we draw this up. Okay, so we're shifting this direction by this factor, so it's going to go up to along the axis, bend around. So this is going to be my first transformation of right 3 units. Okay, now my next transformation is going to be vertically stretching by a factor of 2. That means every point gets stretched upward by a factor of 2. So instead of being at 1 high here, we're going to be at 2 high. So it's going to be right here on this point. This point's going to move up to here. This 1/4 value is going to be stretched by a factor of 2. So it's going to go to a half. So we're going to go up to 2 and back here, and we're going to be at a half. So it's going to stretch it up so it goes up quicker. It still looks very similar. Has the same asymptote. It just goes through 2 instead of 1. Alright, and then it goes through 1/2 down here instead. Okay, so it's stretched, and now it's going to be shifted up 1 unit from there. So our final curve is going to be, let's put that color in an orange color here, yellow. We'll do this in green. So we'll do green here. So we're going to move it up 1. So this asymptote that we have here is going to move up to here. So everything is going to be shifted up 1. So this 1/2 here is going to be up this at 1/2 here. Okay, this is going to be at 2. So it's going to be shifted up 1 unit here. This is going to be 2 here. It's going to be shifted up 1 unit there. And this 1/2 is going to be shifted up 1 unit here to a half. Okay, so we have an asymptote now that goes along this axis at 1. Okay, so we have an asymptote, bends down. Okay, our 2 points that we would want to remember here is going to be 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. So 4, 3. And 2, 3 are the whole values on the graph. We have an asymptote, so it doesn't change that much. It shifts over and stretches up, but it still has an asymptote, vertical and horizontal. Vertical and horizontal asymptote. Okay, so that's what that looks like. Now 42, we have the function that's going to be matched to y equals 1 over x. So to graph that originally, we take our values x and y, -1 and -2. We take the reciprocal of that, so that's still -1. This is going to be -1/2. 0 is still undefined because we don't know what 1 over 0 is. 1 over 1 is still 1, and 1 over 2 is 1/2. So we're going to plot that. We still have 1 here. I'm sorry, -1, -1 goes here. -2, 1/2. -1/2 goes here. 1, 1. And 1/2. So it has an asymptote just like the other one. It drops down close to the axis and bends around close to the other axis. So it's got an x and y asymptote on the axis of x and y. Actually, asymptotes are on the x-axis and the y-axis. And so is the other one. It also has asymptotes there. Now in this one we're going to we're going to shift left 1 for this. So we're going to go left 1. We don't stretch it at all, but there's a minus here, so that's going to reflect on the x-axis. And then we're going to go up 2 because of the positive. It has a positive in front of it, so plus 2, that means it goes up 2. So our first shift here is to go left 1. So we're going to move the asymptote to -1 here. Okay, so it's going to be graphed. It's going to shift over 1 to here. It's going to be going up towards the line x equals -1. And this one's going to shift over 1 here. And we're still going to do the same thing here. We're going to be close to the line x equals -1 and the y-axis. Now we're going to reflect. So the next step would be to flip this over. So instead of here at +1, it's going to be at -1. Okay, so this is going to still be at the axis, but it's going to reflect to the other direction. And this one here is going to reflect from -1 to +1. So it's going to be a graph like this. This graph now is -1 over x plus 1. And then we need to shift it up 2 units. So shifting it up 2 units just moves the x-axis asymptote up to here at 2. So we're going to move it up to 2 here. And then just shift this red graph up 2 units, 1, 2, to here. So it's actually going to cross back where the blue graph was. It's still going to have an axis on y equals 2 and x equals -1. So we're going to shift this up 2, so it's right here. We move up 2, it's right here. So it's going to approach the axis on both sides. It goes through this point. This one goes through this point. 0, 1, and -2, 3.